We are only speaking the actual fact. We are only speaking the actual facts. We are only speaking the actual facts. Speaking the actual facts, the actual facts.
We got to do soyons.
We are only speaking the actual facts, the actual facts, the actual facts, the actual facts.
We got to do soyons.
We are only speaking the actual facts, the actual facts, the actual facts, the actual facts.
We got to do soyons.
As who were once in bondage and acknowledged as merchandise and property, and how they kept you in a particular form of theirs, in a particular order of theirs, to control you and keep you subjected to their rule, as colonialists do in the colonization of the world that they partook of in Africa and other countries. And now you have to learn and know the colonization or the colonialism that took place in the Americas and North America. And so this is a freedom episode. This is a freedom lecture and a freedom class. And we have to hash and continue to be redundant with this information, because this is what the Father came to give us, our freedom and liberty. Not only with the actual facts and the Patarak and the massive amount of outformation that he's given to the world that frees your mind mentally. As you can see, he's written over 1,500 books. For those that have been in contact with me, to receive the publications is a great thing, because you'll see the type of knowledge that the Father has given the planet, given you as a race. And that outformation is liberating. Not only is it liberating to your mind, it also has to be liberating to your body and liberating to us as a people, and free us as a whole from the bondages of foreign races and foreign rule. Well, one thing you have to know is how they actually placed you in bondage. How were you able to be placed inside of a system that kept you in servitude and without any outlets to claim freedom, without any outlets to enjoy true liberty? Why is it that we always have to be subject to their abuse, to their racism, to their discrimination, to their hate, to their judicial system, to their police system, to their economic layout and plans for them that has demarginalized us as a people? How did they create these states that you're in, that they call? I'm particularly speaking of the American Africans in the Americas and the diaspora, because it applies to our people in London as well. And I appreciate y'all tuning in to our people from across the world. But what happens is this: there was a plan that was laid out for America, right? And this happened early in amongst the so-called founding fathers of that country, where they had to protect the institution of slavery, and it was done through the Masonic lodges, right? The European lodges. And as you know, George Washington, who was they claim was the first president, was a part of the Masonic order, right? And in those Masonic lodges, he was a part of lodge number 4 of Fredericksburg, Virginia. And there was 8 signatories to the Constitution, right? The Constitution of the U.S. The Constitution of the U.S. was signed by particular representatives of various colonies, the 13 colonies, in order to create a government that would control the indigenous and control the Africans. As you know, the slave trade was very profitable. Human trafficking, which is still going on today, at the time was profitable then, and it wasn't considered illegal. Though it was illegal, it was based on the premise that the white race was more superior than Africans, or more superior than the black race. And this is all throughout their documents. You'll find this in their Judge Taney's decision in Dred Scott, which we'll go over. We'll address that citizenship part, that where he acknowledges that the Constitution wasn't written for you as black people, as Africans in the diaspora. Anywhere that you are, you were not wrote into the Constitution as a part of the persons or people or the posterity of the Union by which we the people had drafted it. You were not written in there, and you were not given specific those rights that were only exclusively given to the Caucasoid, given to the white men, as they literally label it in their doctrines, right? Um, in the description, Foxy, check the description. You'll see the email where you can you can get information about Dr. Malachi Z. K. York's books. So let's deal with this Constitution. Why? Because the U.S. Constitution is what keeps our people in a particular legal order or legal form. It's a framework that they've created that keeps their authority over you. And so in the Constitution, which was drafted by majority of these members were European Masonic members of the lodges, the grand lodges that were set up in the various colonies: Savannah, Georgia, North and South Carolina, Virginia, right? You had, let me give you a few of the constitutional drafters and who were responsible for drafting it. And the reason we have to address the Constitution is because this is where jurisdiction lies. This is where the control that they claim they have over you. And you have to know, how did they maintain or gain this control in order for you to free yourself? In order to know how to free yourself, you have to know how to unlock the chains, or unlock the handcuffs, or unlock the legal paper that binds you to them, that has given them so-called advantage, which really doesn't exist. You'll see how after this lecture. So let's see, when you deal with the constitutional drafters, 9 of them, actually 11 of them, were Freemasons. One, George Washington, he was a part of the lodge, lodge number 4, Fredericksburg, Virginia. Daniel Carroll, he was a part of lodge number 18 of Maryland. John Blair, lodge number 21, Williamsburg, Virginia. William Blount, number 2, lodge in Edenton, North Carolina. Lodge number 1, Abraham Baldwin was a part of in Savannah, Georgia. Rufus King, number 10, St. Andrew's Lodge in Boston, Massachusetts. Benjamin Franklin, number 13, Philadelphia Lodge, Grand Master of Pennsylvania from 1734. He also was a Grand Master General in 1754. Alexander Hamilton, number 9, Holland Lodge in New York. He was the first Secretary of Treasury. He was also a Worshipful Master in 1802. John Dickinson, number 2, Delaware St. John's Lodge, Worshipful Master. I'm paying attention to the chat, so just make sure you put your questions there. After we finish the lecture, we'll go over them. Delaware St. John's Lodge, Worshipful Master, 1780, 1781, Lodge number 2. William Few, number 1, he was a part of the Savannah Lodge, Solomon's Lodge, Worshipful Master, and Rufus King, Williams Livingston, St. Andrew's Lodge, Grand Master, 1786 to 1790. Now, why is this important? Because the importance of this is that George Washington, who was the Worshipful Master of these lodges, and they would meet at one accord to address how they would control you as Africans of the diaspora, as blacks. How were they going to keep you in their due bounds? How they would create a police force to implement their laws, how they would maintain U.S. property so they can economically benefit from you. All of that was discussed in their lodges. And in their lodges, George Washington was given certain information about how America will be laid out, how America would be designed, and how they would take control from the Atlantic Ocean all the way over to the Pacific Ocean. And this actual details was given to George Washington in early 1700s, where he claimed to have received a vision, right, from a particular woman that gave him this information about how the lands were supposed to be laid out, right? And it was done in Valley Forge. Now, for those that are listening worldwide, I'm just giving, for those that are listening worldwide, this, you may be aware, you may have heard of George Washington, you may not have heard of George Washington, maybe so, I'm not sure, but because he had a vision, and this vision that he claimed, he was visited by a group extraterrestrials, Pleiadian women or Pleiadian beings, who, as our father expressed in 18 plus 18 plus 1 equals 37 genes of the mitochondria DNA, which is an actual fact that he wrote. He expressed how this Pleiadian group of beings, which I know it sounds, when you get into the extraterrestrial topic, I hope you checked out episode 4, where we address these extraterrestrial beings and their control over the Adamite, who's the Caucasoid, and their race as their creator gods. But they also gave them a layout of how they wanted to control America and breed this new African or new race of beings in the Americas under their control, using the blood of the African race, which is you, and controlling the Nubian nation, which is you. And this being gave George Washington a layout of how America would look. Now, let me give you an idea of how you know that America was laid out. I'm gonna just give you, Rahobat, everyone. Let me give you an idea. Please share the channel as well as we talk, so people can chime in, because they may not know we're live. If you look at a map of the U.S., you'll see the design of the states are what? They're all squared off. Visualize in your mind around the world, right, the various maps that you've seen of different countries. And when you look at these different countries, you'll see that nowhere on the planet do you see a map laid out the way the U.S. map is laid out. The U.S. map is all based on a 45-degree angle, right? Actually, pardon me, 90-degree angle, not 45-degree, 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle. You'll see, right, that it's squared off, meaning look at New Mexico in your mind, look at Oklahoma, all of it is square. How is that possible? Think about it. When you go to Africa, you visualize Africa, the countries are not demarcated as such. When you go to Europe, the European countries are not demarcated in a way where the states are squared off. This was a specific design and layout by individuals who are very familiar with the compass and the square. When you look at the states, you'll see coming over, look at starting from Iowa to Minnesota, Texas, there's a square, the Panhandle, Oklahoma, there's a square, Wyoming, there's a square, North and South Dakota are actually just squared off, like that, right? When you look at Arkansas, California, Washington, Oregon, North and South Dakota, right? I mentioned that Utah, Iowa, look at those Midwestern Colorado, you'll see they're all squared off. But you only can see that from a higher position, right? You even the roads look like grids, right? You don't see that from a lateral perspective, right? You only can see that from above. And this is the layout that was given to George Washington in order for him and his colleagues, the signers of the Constitution, to create these lands and impose their jurisdictions. What is jurisdiction? Jurisdiction is the control that lodges have over territories. So when you say, what is the jurisdiction you claim, most lodge members that are Masons understand that terminology. However, jurisdiction is also used when they come to arrest you, or when they say we have control over this territory, or we have control over you. We have jurisdiction to bring you into our courts. We have jurisdiction to bring you into our custody. We have jurisdiction to do what? Try you in a court of law and order. So the order by which they implemented this plan that was received by George Washington in what year it was? It was in, let me give you the exact year. Oh, the exact year was the exact year was 1777 when he reached Valley Forge. When he was in Valley Forge, he talks about Anthony Sherman, one of his lodge members, gives an account of how George Washington had a visitor came to visit him in his cabin. It was a woman that was a Pleiadian woman. He described this woman. The guy by the name of Anthony Sherman describes the vision that George Washington has, and it's recorded in several newspapers. I don't know why I'm having a hard time. It was the illustration. Pardon me. Let me find this real quick. Right. Revisiting Valley Forge. Valley Forge was the camp, right, in Philadelphia, north of Philadelphia. Washington recreated for. He had a tough loss. He reached Valley Forge in December 1777. He suffered through a rough winter, and he gives a story of how he contacted this Pleiadian woman that gave him a layout. And this woman you saw as the Manifest Destiny. You'll see her. When you type in Manifest Destiny, you'll see how she has a book under her arm, a Bible. She has a long white robe. She looks like a Pleiadian being, one of beings from the Pleiadian star system who was responsible for breeding the Caucasoid using their genes. This is why they have the pale skin. But he gives his words on how one afternoon he was sitting at his table, engaged, preparing a dispatch. Something seemed to disturb him, right? He says, this is George Washington's words, that I saw some moments before. He said, looking up, I beheld opposite me a singularly beautiful female. So astonished was I that I had given strict orders not to be disturbed, that it was some moments before I found language to inquire the cause of her presence. A second and third and even fourth time did I repeat my question. So this Pleiadian woman that he saw at Valley Forge, this mysterious woman, said the same mysterious voice to him, "Son of the Republic." Voice as before she said, "Look and learn." At that moment, he beheld a dark, shadowy being like angel, standing, or rather floating in midair between Europe and America. Now, remember, I told you that the Manifest Destiny, when you look up Manifest Destiny, you'll see this woman floating in midair, and she was traveling from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And their entire doctrine of Manifest Destiny was to lay out the blueprint of the Americas the way they had received it from these Pleiadian beings. And this is the account of what he had to do, right? He got a shadowy being like an angel standing, or rather floating in midair between Europe and America, right? Dipping water out of the ocean into the hollow of each hand. He sprinkled some upon America with the right hand, while with the left hand he cast some on Europe. Immediately a cloud rose or raised from the countries and joined in mid-ocean. For a while it remained stationary and then moved slowly westward until it enveloped America in the murky folds. Sharp flashes of lightning, remember that lightning, gleamed through it at intervals, and I heard the smothered groans and cries of the American people, until the whole land from the Atlantic to the Pacific was dotted with them. So this account is the account that one of the accounts he had with these beings, and how they had told him how they had to manifest the destiny. And the reason they were so adamant about controlling America and controlling the Africans of the diaspora was to carry out this order. Now, when you read one of the books written by our father, our heavenly father, our president, our chief, he explains that George Washington was in contact with these beings, right? And in this mitochondria DNA, or the mitochondrial DNA 18 plus 18 plus 1. In verse 41, he says, the presence of Kamau Pleiadians of Taha Earth and their collaboration with modern governments has been speculated for years. George Washington, who left many clues in Masonic prints, and these Masonic prints are throughout his symbols and signs of the Pleiadian star system. You'll see symbols and signs of Jacob's ladder. You see symbols and signs of crafts. You see that within these extraterrestrial. When you look at his Masonic aprons, you'll see symbols on his Masonic apron. One is in Philadelphia, and one is in the Masonic Museum. And so what happens is this. There's something they call the Mississippi, or the Organic Acts for Territories of the United States. This right here, you'll see, this book has many organic acts. And these organic acts is how they took organic territory, land, and moved it into the corporate entity or this government structure to control it and implement their jurisdictions over the individuals who were on the lands themselves. Now, Georgia had committed fraud in order to obtain certain lands. Georgia had committed certain fraud to obtain certain lands, right? Okay. And what happened is they claimed all the way from the Atlantic to the Mississippi, all of the lands between the Oconee River, and we went through this last episode, through the Mississippi. And they created four companies took claims of the lands and sold it throughout the world to about 60,000 different European settlers who were planning to come into the Americas. Georgia claimed lands, your land. This is the land that our father, Dr. Malachi Z. York, brought us back to, that they were aware of his plan in order to build a nation, because the lands and by which Georgia had claimed, they illegally did it through a particular Yazoo land fraud. And because of that, they had signed it into law, and it was rejected by the Supreme Court because they didn't hold rightful title. And in 1803, the U.S., because they had to manifest their destiny, agreed with Georgia to say, listen, we can't let these Nubians, these Negroes, these Africans of the African Americans or Africans in America, are these individuals who we see as property. We can't allow them to control this land. So they agreed to buy the land from Georgia, which was an illegal sale because Georgia didn't have title. This is one of the secrets of the U.S. This is one of the secrets that they keep hidden in the Masonic Museum in Alexandria, Virginia, on the 5th floor. This is what I'm trying to get you to all understand, is that they do not own that land. You are the rightful controllers of Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, which is the land of your nation. And in order for you to be free, in order for you to survive what's about to take place, and with all of the things that's happening in America, you're going to need a nation to attach yourself to. And that nation is the Nubian Nation, the United Nubian Nation, the United Nubian Nation, right? We're known as Sabaeans because that is our culture. We're known as Nubians because that is our mind. There's a three-part there that you have to understand as it relates to what we are called and reintroduced to by our Father, by our president that gave us the Outformation, that has given us the Outformation in order for us to free ourselves. It's a do-it-yourself solution. No one is going to be able to free you from what is about to take place other than yourself. And you're getting fair warning because the time is at hand and you don't have a lot of time. So you have to acknowledge you are a part of a nation that has 6.77 million acres of land in the southeastern area. That you are literally the claimants to that, and you will claim it. We have claimed it, and we do have control over it. We will have control over it, though the Caucasoid and his system has, yes, they built their structures, they built their governments, but these are illegal governments. The Georgia government is an illegal entity. It doesn't exist on paper legally. It's a fraudulent entity. The U.S. in collusion, right, brought lands that they didn't own from Georgia in 1803 in the 1803 land cession. And in 1803, the U.S. gave Georgia the ability, so-called, to create 2 additional governments to control your land. And it sounds like something from a movie, but this is, if you remember the movie National Treasure, you remember that they were all involved with the paperwork and the secret symbols that was Nicolas Cage played. And if you watch the movie again, look at the movie, you'll see that it had to do with the symbols on the Declaration of Independence that had to do with Masonry, and the treasures by which they found in a secret chamber is the same room or chamber that's found in the Masonic Lodge in Philadelphia in the northeast corner. They have a lodge there that was built in the 1800s. The same lodge that William Penn was affiliated with that created jurisdiction over Pennsylvania. The same affiliation that George Washington had that created a jurisdiction over Washington. the law says that in order for you to interpret a document, we're talking about the Constitution now, and I'm giving you the jurisdictional claims that the Mukasu claims they have over you. When they say you are a citizen, that the citizen receives rights and benefits that we the people, according to the preamble, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. What did they do? They to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense and domestic, and promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves. First, you have to establish who we the people are. We the people are the colonialists. So the preamble sets out who the people are that are in reference to in the constitutions of the United States, because this is how they bring you in their court. They say we have jurisdiction over you because of the Constitution. We have jurisdiction over you because you're a citizen. But what if the Constitution doesn't involve you? The Constitution does not have you inside of it as a citizen. So if it doesn't have you inside of it as a citizen, and it doesn't have you inside of it as receiving the rights and securing your blessings of liberty, then they can't apply it to you when they want to bring you into their courts or try you in a court of law, because you're not written in the Constitution as an equal person that's protected by the Constitution. So they play a game with you that says when you have constitutional rights, Fourth Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights. You don't have constitutional rights because you're not written in the Constitution as a person that will receive the benefits of the Constitution, because the Constitution was for we the people, which excluded you. And you know it excluded you because inside of the Constitution, you're written as a person, a people who they substituted that word for slave. Pardon me. They substituted slave for persons. And slavery is written in 7 articles within the Constitution alone. You'll see it written in there. Right? And I'll give you the articles, right? So when you look at the preamble, if they say we own black people, we have Africans, we have indigenous, you are part of us as citizens, that's why we can bring you into court. You ask them, where are you in the Constitution as a citizen? That's how you challenge their jurisdiction. When they try to bring you into a place and say, well, we're trying you for this crime because you are a citizen. How are you a citizen in this document? Because are you a part of the people? They would have to say no. Were you a writer of the Constitution? Was the intent of the drafters of the Constitution, did they include you in here as equal to the Caucasoid, as equal to white men? No. It was the union of these colonists who came together at the time. It literally says as distinct members of separate political communities into one political family, whose power for certain specific purposes was to extend over the whole territory of the United States. And the intentions of that was to control you and to see you as merchandise. So you would never be seen as a citizen within the Constitution. You would never be accepted as a citizen in their country. You would never be accepted as a citizen in their system, because the drafters didn't intend for you to be. So they can't amend it and change it and say, well, now later we accept them as that, because the Supreme Court, their Supreme Court says that you can't change the intent of the drafters. If the intent of the drafters was to exclude you as an equal person and see you as property, then every time they bring you into their courts, every time they arrest you, they arrest you as property. And that's where the challenge comes in. Example, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1, the importation of such persons, where you were not supposed to tax. They used such persons there because the drafters didn't want to offend the Northerners when they were creating the Union. So they removed slave and put import of such persons. And they said that these such persons, the importation would end in 1808. So they saw you as property in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3. 3/5 of a person was in reference to you as a slave. So they didn't see you as a citizen. They saw you as property. Article 1, Section 9, Paragraph 4. They would tax 3/5 of a person, which was you, counting you as 3/5 of a person, because the South needed more representation, right? As smaller states, the smaller states needed more representation in Congress because larger states had more population, so there wasn't an equal balance. So they needed to create a system where they will only count you as 3/5 of a person and as property. That's in Article 1, Section 9, Paragraph 4. Article 5, Section 2, Paragraph 3, there's a fugitive slave clause there. That is when the protection of property, you traveling to another state, that in the event that you went to a free state, so-called, that the federal government would allow a person who owned an ex-slave pick you up and bring you back to the owner because you were considered free as a fugitive. You were considered property and therefore didn't have the rights to be protected by their Constitution. Article 5 also prohibited any amendment of the slave import, meaning that when you imported slaves, then they tried to tax it. They said they wouldn't allow it to be amended. This is all in their Constitution. So by no way are you in their documents or in their system as a citizen. So where and who and how are you a citizen of what nation? You have to claim the Nubian nation as yours. In order for you as a people to be free, the Father implicitly says this in his book that he's written of actual facts called Takwam un Shalal and Nunnunya, which is, right, a nation of our own. Takwam un Shalal and Nunnunya, a nation of our own. It says, you, the United Nubian Nation, right, the Yamasee tribe, which is an African, the original African people. So if you claim that you want to be indigenous, you claim you want to be a part of that, you still are an African by seed. You don't take an apple from Africa or seed, and if you plant it in another part of the world, it doesn't change the origin of the seed. You still are an African. Because you were moved or you traveled to an indigenous land or another land and set your seed there, it doesn't mean that you're not an African. You have to be acknowledged as an African. You have to accept that as an African. So when you read this, and he says it in verse 23, you, the Nubian nation, nation of Yamasee, the original African people of this Kawak Taha planet Earth, who were once lost from your own kind, are free and will be free forever now that you have your very own what? 1. Ranam. 2, which is your name, Nubians, Sabians, or Nubians. 2, Saka, land, Nuapia, right? Your lands is in this southeastern area that you make claims to, that we will make claims to after you come together and acknowledge yourself as a national. Everyone should be becoming a national. Everyone should be able to acknowledge your own nation because you're not a part of any nation. That's why they don't accept you there. That's why you keep getting slapped upside your head. That's why you keep getting beat up. That's why you keep getting arrested. That's why you keep getting incarcerated. That's why you keep getting killed in the street. And he moved us onto the capital seat, the capital territory, in order for us to erect an obelisk. And when you see the obelisk in Washington, know that that obelisk was a radio antenna. And that radio antenna was directing them to their overlords, to their gods. And you'll see that illustrated in figure 14 of this mitochondria book. You'll see the illustration of Washington Monument. I'll give y'all all the information. Yes.
We are only speaking the actual
Thanks for
facts.
joining the Actual Facts Podcast.
We are
If you
only
enjoy
speaking
these
the
lectures,
actual facts.
please feel free to check out previously recorded episodes. Just click the link in the window. And please don't forget to subscribe, share, and like.
With Dr. Deuce White, y'all.
We are only speaking the actual facts, the actual facts, the actual facts, the actual